Many everyday objects find their place in the Bible either as utilities or as source of absorbing imagery. Mirrors also find their way in various places. However, the references to actual users as well as situations of people using the mirrors are scarce. Mirrors do appear in the Bible as part of the persuasive imagery of the biblical language. Before we look for the users of mirrors in the Bible and instances of mirror imagery, let us find out what actually were the biblical mirrors. They were certainly not the mirrors that we use, which are made of glass. Glass is a later invention. The biblical mirrors are sometimes called also looking glasses. The primitive mirrors were highly polished volcanic stones called obsidian. The ones found in Turkey dates back to 6000 BC. Later, with greater insight into metallurgy, the other materials were employed for the making of mirrors. They were highly polished metal, sometimes pure metal, sometimes combination of metals. The first mirrors were crafted from brass. As the idea of luxury caught up more fervently, they might have used silver or gold. The use of metal alloys was widespread, especially a mix of tin and copper. Artifacts collected from excavations of various ancient centers of culture show that they were used some 2000 years before Christ in all major regions of the then known world. By the time of Christ, the use of silver mirrors was so extensive as Pliny, 1st century, has put it, our maidservants even began to use silver ones. The universal fascination with mirrors was shared also by the Jewish women. Perhaps, the contact with the superior Egyptian culture might have given an impetus for further craving for the luxurious aspect of living. The women carried their mirrors with them, often hung from their neck. The widespread use of mirrors by Jewish women can be derived from the book of Exodus. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "You shall also make a basin of bronze, with its stand also of bronze, for washing." Exodus, chapter 30 verse 18. In obedience to the command of the Lord, Moses made the bronze basin, and to this enterprise the women generously parted with their mirrors, a sacrifice which indeed was very difficult to make. He made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze, from the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of meeting. Exodus, chapter 38 verse 8. The women who parted with their mirrors were actual users of mirrors in their life. However, the Bible does not show any instance of anyone using a mirror. Yet, the Bible has evolved a potent use of mirror imagery which appears both in the Old as well as the New Testaments. The most familiar of mirror images used in the Bible is the one used by St. Paul. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know fully, even as I was also fully known. 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 12. Through this powerful imagery, Paul admits the imperfection of our understanding of heavenly realities. After all, a mirror can only reflect the object. It was quite possible that the polished metal eventually became less reliable by wear and tear and gave only a dim reflection of the viewer. However, in the future world the reality is a first-hand experience and hence perfect. St. Paul continues the mirror imagery, also, in the 2 Corinthians. However, in this instance he seems to extol the quality of the mirror which reflected the glory of God so perfectly that the beholders were themselves transformed into that glory, but we all, with unveiled face beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are transformed into the same image from glory to glory, even as from the Lord, the Spirit. 2 Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 18. In this imagery the mirror did not reflect the images of the beholder, but that of God. By sincerely meditating Jesus' teaching and placing our faith in Him, the believer is filled with the power and glory of God. The Apostle James uses the mirror image forcefully to convey the silliness of the people who listen to the Word of God and do not follow it. The mirror gives a realistic image of oneself. The imperfections are seen by the beholder. However, the moment he turns away from the mirror, he forgets his true image and becomes complacent. For if a man be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he shall be compared to a man beholding his own countenance in a glass. For he beheld himself and went his way and presently forgot what manner of man he was. James chapter 1 verses 23 to 24. In this imagery, the mirror is used as an object that tells us point blank how far away we are from Christ-likeness. This generates in us qualms of conscience, which is indeed an invitation for reforming ourselves after the image of Christ. However, the ripple generated in us is short-lived. The moment we stand off the mirror, our imperfections no more trouble us. The prophet Isaiah, in his apocalyptic warnings to the daughters of Zion of the impending doom of Jerusalem, mentions many objects of finery which had become the fashion appendages of Jewish women. Mirror was one among them: the mirrors, the linen garments, the turbans, and the veils. Instead of fragrance there will be a stench; instead of a sash, a rope; instead of well-dressed hair, baldness; instead of fine clothing, sackcloth; instead of beauty, branding. Isaiah chapter 3, verses 23 to 24. Isaiah sees the mirrors along with other paraphernalia as the signs of excessive vanity of these women. Ever since mirrors became freely available, they have become part of the fashion accessories of women across the globe. While the ancient women hung it from their neck, the modern carry it in their vanity bags. It is in the book of Job that mirrors are specifically mentioned as metal mirrors. Elihu, one of the friends of Job, is the dominant presence in chapter 37. He drives home to Job the sagacity of divine providence in creation and its unfathomable mysteries. Borrowing the popular parlance of the times, he asks Job, "Can you join him in spreading out the skies, hard as a mirror of cast bronze?" Job chapter 37, verse 18. Elihu thinks of the firmament as a hard substance, and its hardness and stability is best rendered by the metal mirrors that were very common at the time of the composition of the book of Job. The imagery echoes not only the hardness but also the polished perfection of the ancient mirrors that gave a perfect image of the beholder. The firmament in the Psalms as well as in Job is the canopy that proclaims the power and the glory of the Creator. Mirror imagery in the Bible and Christian life is a fascinating subject. In the physical plane, a mirror helps us to see as we are. The glance in the mirror, when we set out for anything, tells us what we lack. Then we do whatever grooming that is needed to enhance our visual appeal. Similarly, in the spiritual plane we gaze intently on the Word of God as revealed in the Bible. The gaze gives us an idea of what we are. How distant are we from the ideal, and enables us to take the remedial measures as we try to acquire the manhood of Christ.